Right, okay, today we're going to be looking at how to create newspaper headlines and the orientation for a newspaper. So that, as we've said earlier, is the introduction. So I hope you've all watched the last video in relation to Macbeth, the ending of the story Macbeth. So hopefully that's all done. So let's have a look at how to write a newspaper headline and how to write the orientation. So we're going to need a snappy headline, something that's going to grab the reader's attention. That's the whole point of the headline. It gets the reader's attention so people will buy the newspapers. And then we're also going to create an introduction to a newspaper. So we're going to make sure we get those 5 W's in. Remember, in an earlier lesson I mentioned something about 5 bums on a park bench to make you remember. So who, where, when, what and why. I'm going to have a look in a little bit more detail in a few minutes. So I've wrote some headlines here and I've tried to go for short, snappy headlines that will get the reader's attention. And the very first one there is King killed in combat. Now, I've used something there where we've got king and killed as an example of alliteration. So where you've got the same letter starting each word. So we've got K for king and K for killed. Okay, so yes, Macbeth was killed in his final battle. He, as you've just heard, he sustained a very nasty injury, losing his head. So remember, this is a fictional story. It was created by William Shakespeare. It is not a real story, but it is a story that Shakespeare wrote. So another headline that I've gone for is Macbeth reign over. Now, if he was a real king, people at the time would have been rejoicing, be really happy if they knew that Macbeth was killed and that they was going to get a new king. And that leads us on to the third headline. The king is dead, long live the king. Now that is a saying that once a king has passed away, a new king is crowned. So as we've looked at in our Tudors work, when Henry VII passed away, Henry VIII became King of Scotland. King of England, I should say. Do apologise. Right, so the king is dead, long live the king is a saying that is used to bring in a new king. Right, let's have a look. So you're going to have to create your own newspaper headline. Now you're going to do that on Purple Mash. There is a newspaper article on there and I would like you to create a headline for Macbeth's death. So I've got 3 there, okay? Try to use some imagination. Don't just go for the ones I've done, okay? See whether you can come up with your own snappy, eye-catching headlines. Right, once you've done the headline, you will then need to do the so it's also known as the orientation, and this is the 5 W's. So, who is the story about? Where did it take place? When did it happen? What happened? And why did it happen? So there's a few things there we need to think about. So we're going to look in a little bit more detail at an orientation that I've written. So hopefully this will give you a little bit more of an understanding. So I'm just going to move on to the next page. Right, I really like my headline, King Killed in Combat. I thought I did quite well with that one, to be honest, if I do say so myself. And I've just highlighted different colours, okay? If you look in the top right hand corner, you can see that the blue section is when the event took place. The green one is where it took place. The red is who was involved. The yellow is what happened. And the purple is why did it happen. Okay? Now, I'm just going to read the section first, and then we'll look at this in a lot more detail. So, last night, okay, On a battlefield just outside Inverness, King Macbeth was finally killed in battle. Macduff's army was too powerful for the tyrant who lost his head in his final fight. Okay, so if you have finished listening to the story that I've read, then you will know that Macbeth lost his head. Right, let's have a look at this bit. So that very first section, first 2 words of it, last night. Doesn't start once upon a time. Once upon a time there was a king in Scotland. It doesn't start anything like that. It starts with the word last night. And straight away, I've got one of my 5 W's in that first paragraph. Last night is when it happened. It could be late yesterday evening or at midnight last night. Okay, so just keeping it yesterday afternoon. I'm not sure when the fight actually took place, but you can make sure you get that in straight away. When did it take place? It's a dead easy one to get in. Note that I put a comma after it. So last night, on a battlefield just outside Inverness. So it's telling you where the story takes place. Okay? We know that King Duncan reigned in Inverness. He reigned in Scotland. Okay? Not 100% sure whether this is the correct part for where the final battle took place, but certainly we've used our inference skills because it was mentioned earlier, and we can imply that that's where it could have taken place for the second battle. So last night on a battlefield just outside Inverness, King Macbeth. Now that is the who. This is who the article's about. Okay. Late last night on a battlefield just outside Inverness, King Macbeth was finally killed. And the was finally killed is what has happened. So in that first sentence, I've got 4 of those 5 W's. Okay? I've got the when did it take place, where did it take place, who was involved, and what happened. All 4 of those I've managed to get into my first sentence. My next sentence is explaining the why it happened. So why was he killed? And it explains here, Macduff's army was too powerful for the tyrant who lost his head in his final fight. Now that's why it's happened. In truth, possibly for the tyrant who lost his head in his final battle could have been in yellow, but that doesn't matter. We've already got one of those W's in. We've already explained the what's happened. Now, this is done very, very well in newspapers today. Okay, we could look at newspaper articles that are, a good example. If you go onto the BBC website, have a look at an article, and you'll be able to find examples. So you can spot who a story is about, where it took place, when did it happen, what happened. They might not have all the W's in, but they'll get 3 or 4 in every article. Right, your job now. You're going to go on to Purple Mash. I would like you to write a newspaper headline for this story. King Macbeth killed. Okay? You're going to then write the orientation, and I want those 5 W's. Who's involved, what happened, when it took place, where it took place, and why did it happen. Okay? I'm looking forward to these coming through on Purple Mash, and I'll be able to see what people have done. I wish you all the best, and I look forward to reading your work.